Hey there, we're gonna be making an old fashioned today using Top Shelf's orange bitters. Now to make an old fashioned, you're gonna need some sugar to start, so any sugar cube works. If you don't have any sugar cubes, you can go ahead and use a sugar pack. I'd recommend just using half a pack of sugar. That usually goes very well. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna douse the sugar cube with our orange bitters. So we want a nice healthy portion here. We wanna make sure that all of our sugar is doused and absorbs all of this bitters. So right here, you can see that I've got my liquid, I've got my sugar. I'm just gonna give that a little bit of a shake just to make sure that my sugar cube absorbs all of that orange bitters. So while I'm doing this here, we're looking pretty good, it's pretty absorbed. We're gonna wanna muddle this into a paste. So we're gonna take our muddler and we're gonna crush this bittered up sugar cube into a nice consistent paste. This will just make it a little bit easier to dissolve in our whiskey. So for our whiskey here, we've got a few choices. We've got our Perth Whiskey. We've also got our sherry cask Perth Whiskey. I'm a huge fan of the sherry cask. It's got a little bit more character, something that I really like, a little bit more depth. So I'm gonna be using this. So whatever whiskey you're using, but I do recommend the sherry cask from Perth Whiskey. Go for a healthy 2-ounce pour, and we're gonna pour that right into our mixing glass. Once this is in here, we're not gonna add the ice right away. We're gonna give this a little bit of a stir just to help those sugars dissolve, because we wanna get a nice uniform texture. You don't want any granulated sugar remaining in your glass while you're drinking a cocktail. There's nothing worse than a bit of a crunchy cocktail. That should all be liquid. Makes it a lot more enjoyable. Now this is fairly dissolved. You might not be able to dissolve all the sugars, which is fine. This is why we're using a separate mixing glass. So when I'm pouring it into my serving glass, the residual sugars will actually stick inside here. Once this is done, I'm gonna add some ice to my mixing glass. More ice is always better. If you don't put enough, it'll over dilute. And then of course, we're gonna ice our serving glass at the same time. Now it's time to give this a stir. Blend everything together nicely, and it's also gonna chill, add a little bit of dilution, tone down the heat from that whiskey. And it's also gonna give us a little bit more aromas, because a lot of aromas get stuck in those alcohol molecules, and with a bit of dilution, it opens up and you get some notes that you wouldn't normally see there. Now that you got a nice mix here, give that a little taste. This is perfect. If there's a little bit too much heat, too alcohol-y for you, keep stirring a little bit longer. I'm getting some nice orange flavors, some nice caramel tones. Works perfectly together. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna strain this into my serving glass. So we've got a nice king cube inside of a nice rocks glass. Give this a nice pour. When you're pouring, go slowly, so that way if there's any excess sugar, it will stick to the inside of your glass, and you're not gonna be transferring this into your serving glass. And it just makes for a nicer texture. And then of course, it's time for the garnish. Traditionally, it is a orange peel. We're gonna stick with tradition. We're gonna be doing an orange peel. Also because we're using orange bitters, it just goes very well together. So using a peeler, peel off a little piece of orange skin, avoiding as much pith as you can. And then we're gonna give this a little bit of a trim just to clean it up. Just like so. And then once you've got your garnish ready, give that a little expression, get the oils all out of this peel, rub it around the glass. Every time you bring it up to your nose, you have a nice citrus orangey aroma and a little bit on the glass here. So on the nose, you're gonna get a lot of the peel, but on the palate, you're gonna get a lot of the bitters, which also has a little bit of the ginger backbone, which works really, really nicely with the spices of the whiskey. And here we have it, your classic old fashioned.